taxpayers' monies are used judiciously, and also to hold government to task. When government makes promises, when government introduces policies, it's up to the MPs to check all these things. MPs also have a duty to check the performance of the executive. The first question that I'm asking, have the minority failed in this mandate, putting this at the foundation of the conversation?
Helen, we need to understand what happened on Friday night in a certain context.
Right.
Then we can answer that question. Let's look at the context. Number one, the NDC as a party and the minority as a caucus have been asking the president to reduce the size of his government. For so long, they had been at that crusade. They never succeeded, and they never will, we know.
That's right.
Because they have directly called out the president on the size of the government. They have directly said that if the government led by the president was asking Ghanaians to tighten their belts, to understand the situation that we are in, and to try to make some compromises, then the administration should also be in a position to sacrifice. Some of those sacrifices we had, if you recall the lecture that was given by the former president at UPSA, and I think there was another follow-up at which Atu Forson also spoke at the time. He wasn't a minority leader then. And they had called on the government to do a number of things in order to ensure that the pinch that we are feeling now would be lessened. One of those things was for the size of government to be reduced. Merge some of the ministries, sack some of the ministers, realign some of the responsibilities in government, just so that you would find that trickle-down effect on the expenditure of government machinery. Because the argument has always been made that if you compare government budget year on year, you would realize that the expenditure of government machinery is simply too much.
Yes.
And so where you would find, for instance, the budget that is allocated to the Jubilee House compared to a ministry, say Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs Ministry, you would find that the presidency, the budget of the presidency far outweighs that of the ministry.
Right.
And a lot of the things too, you saw, there were some responsibilities at the presidency that you didn't expect to find at the presidency. For instance, you have the other thing we looked at the other day, you have communication persons, you have a whole ministry of communication at the presidency, you have
we're told
communication
somewhat 15
persons.
directors of comms.
So many duplications in roles and responsibilities, which in effect balloons the expenditure at the presidency.
Right. Sixtus, not to cut you off too abruptly, but let me introduce Komla Kluche into the conversation. Komla Kluche is our colleague and parliamentary correspondent. Komla, good morning to you.
Good morning. The line is quite bad. I don't know if...
Apologies. I'll try and speak up. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Let's try this one.
All right, let's try and see how we get on. We're just laying the foundation of this very important interesting conversation. On Friday, the voting happened. This is as concerns the 6 ministerial nominees of the president, and we saw that, well, the majority had their way on the day. The likes of Honorable Ricketts Hagen prefers some reasons as to why this happened. So for the Honorable, he cites 3 reasons, which we'll take a listen to him, and then Komla, I'll ask you to weigh in on that, and if you think, and of these 3 reasons, which one you think is the most prominent. The mention of possible party sabotage. We know what happened when there was a shuffle, if you will, a shake-up in the leadership of the minority in Parliament. Some believe that the after effects is what we're seeing, that there's still unhappiness as concerns the position of party leadership leadership to change things around. Another reason and or allegation is that there was monetary inducement, bribes, to put it bluntly, bribes paid to some of these NDC minority MPs, and also the issues of friendship, possible familiar ties, also the workings of Parliament. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Before we listen to the Honourable as he spoke on key points, of these three reasons, which one do you believe is emerging as the most prominent for what happened on Friday?
Well, two of them, the probable ones. I mean, the issue of friendship and relationship. I mean, were we really expecting the NDC MPs to do this, you know, for want of a better word than in quote, for Ghana? I wasn't expecting them to do this. Honestly, if you ask me, I was not. And
Kamla, you say you were not expecting, clarify, you were not expecting the NDC MPs, some of them, to vote contrary to the collective directive?
Absolutely not. Why were we expecting them to? And I say this for a reason. Look, a lot of them, okay, and hearing, I'm going to be very, very cautious in speaking about this particular matter. And let me also say that I'm not saying in any way that this individual voted for the other. The relationship between KT Amon and Dr. Kwabena Donko, if many know KT Amon and Kwabena Donko, they are virtually siblings. Many people do not know that.
You say they are virtually siblings?
Yes, and I'm not saying, let me say it emphatically again. I'm not saying that Kwabena Donko voted for KT Amon, but time unnumbered, KT Amon and Kwabena Donko have shown that kind of very, very strong bond. You know, there are times that even if Kwabena Donko, there was a popular video that went viral. Kwabena Donko was granting interview, and KT Amon from nowhere came from the flank and just came, you know, ostensibly to disrupt it. You know, it was a joke that happened though, but it is the friendship that exists between them. The same applies to Kwabena Donko. To if KT is doing an interview and he is just walking around and sees it, you know, he tries to come around, you know, not to show support necessarily, but, you know, just to cut a joke or something. Now, there are a lot of MPs who have very, very deep relationships with each other, especially from the other side. And how morally upright, you know, for want of a better word, would it be for him or her to see the downfall of somebody he has had a lifelong relationship with? This is one thing that we should have also looked at.
Right.
But the issue of sabotage, or the issue of, let me not start with the sabotage first, but the issue of sending a strong signal to Adabraka here means the NDC headquarters that you cannot trust us around is quite key. Quite key in the sense that we know the way and manner in which the changes to the leadership of the House was done. A lot of the MPs are still peeved about it. And they are peeved about it, and I say this with caution. But look, yes, we are told by the leadership of the NDC that this matter has been dealt with.
That's right. We were told that they had moved on. Things were peaceful, and they were happy to get on with things, and they were happy to throw their weight behind the new leadership. Do you say that that was simply a facade, and issues were still brewing underneath?
It was just an issue of smearing a powder on the face. It hasn't been dealt with properly. And saying it hasn't been dealt with properly because, yes, maybe in one instance, the people who have been affected, the individuals who have been affected, of course, they would always go for their pound of flesh.
Right.
And people who have also benefited from it. You see, the fact is that the current leadership of the minority, they have become victims of circumstances. There's nobody who can lay out a particular crime that Ato Forson, that Agboja that Amabua have committed. No, they have gotten themselves into this situation because it's a directive from the party. The change was effected by the top leadership of the party, and they have had to face the brunt of it because they are the ones to implement it. And also the fact that the party issued a statement, a green line whip, that they should strictly obey this, and that was one thing that some of them said they are not kids, they cannot be instructed about. And those were the undertones. And trust me, look, few hours to the voting, they knew that their camp had been infiltrated. But they didn't know the extent to which it had been infiltrated, the magnitude, the numbers. And to be honest with you, even the leadership of the MPP in the majority leadership were shocked at the numbers. They were very shocked. I spoke to one of the leaders on the majority side who said he never expected that the number would be this huge. And that is also another thing that needs to be looked at. Was it a signal?
Yeah, not to slight tackle you. When you say that they were shocked by the numbers, again, I've referenced Honorable Ricky Hagan a number of times. He says that leadership says that they were made aware that some MPs might be compromised ahead of the voting. So how much of a big shock would it have been, knowing this intel, to find that some had broken ranks and decided to vote yes?
They knew that yes, they had broken, or they would have a lot of them who would break ranks. But the fact is that they didn't know that it was going to be this huge. Let me paint a picture for you. And on Saturday, I was saying it on Midday Live that when the results were being collated, both sides had two polling agents. The NPP had two, the NDC also had two. Now, when one of the polling agents for the NDC, Roxanne, gave a piece of paper to the deputy minority leader, you could see him straight from where we sat at the public gallery. He exclaimed and put his two hands on his head, which indicated that he was shocked that it would be this huge. Because they never expected. Yes, they had knowledge that their camp had been infiltrated. It was the more reason they went for that high-level meeting, which had John Dramani Mahama attending and had the Council of Elders also attending and other bigwigs, where they pledged. But the fact is that how binding would that pledge be, especially when you were going for secret voting? It was not going to work.
And also, Kamala, how binding will that be if there's monetary inducement? We've talked about the possible party sabotage and also the familial ties, friendship ties that exist. Quickly, before we go on to the issue of possible bribes, let's take a listen to what the Honorable Ricketts Hagan had to say concerning this, and then I'll pick your thoughts on that as well.
Who don't see the collective interests of what we are trying to achieve as a party, and that they are more interested in themselves making money as quick as they can, and by selling the NDC, selling the caucus or the minority caucus, when we are in a position of strength, that if it looks as if we have something good that we've talked about that we intend to achieve, others use that to go and negotiate for their own selfish interest on the other side.
So what you're saying is that some NDC MPs were bribed, they took money?
Absolutely, no doubt. Because before we went into
you know that for sure? No
doubt. Things added up. Let me tell you why I said no doubt.
I see.
They told us, as our leadership, the number of people on our side that they are 100% sure that they've got them. They told us.
Really?
And was it a coincidence that the numbers happen to be the same?
So the new leadership told you that some of you and NDC MPs have been bought?
Yes.
They told you?
Yes.
Before you went into the voting?
They went into a meeting And our opponents told them that we've bought your people, so be careful what you're trying to do.
MPP MPs told you?
Yes.
That some of you NDC
well,
MPs
that's what my leaders told me.
Your leadership told you this?
Yes.
Keslato forcing and
yes,
they said it to you?
Yes.
That some of you NDC MPs have been bought?
Yes.
Well, that again was Honorable Ricketts Hagan saying emphatically that some of the minority caucus had been bought. Komla, damning allegation there.
Very, very damning allegations. And you see, I mean, it's not just him that I'm hearing this from. Even on Friday, okay? Even on Friday, when the votes were being collated and the results started to trickle in and all that, one NDC MP who I do not have his permission to put his name out. Yes, of course, he told me that people from his own stock, his own backyard, meaning NDC MPs, he was going home about, that was specifically on Tuesday. One of them called him to ask him where he was. He said he had already left. He was going. They said, okay, they needed to talk to him and that this specific amount was available. In fact, he didn't fall short of mentioning the amount. He said he was offered 10,000 cedis. I don't have the permission of him to mention his name, but this was what he told me. And he told them that they should never call his phone again. These were things that, you know, he said to me.
So, Komla, just to clarify again, you say that when you spoke with one minority MP on the NDC side, of course, he said that they were offered somewhat 10,000 Ghana cedis to vote yes.
He said his colleagues were offering him, they called him to ask him where he was. He said he had left. They said, okay, they've got something for him regarding the voting that was going to take place. And then he told them that he was not interested. Oh, no, it's just some small fuel that we have to give you. And he asked them, small fuel of how much? And they said 10,000. And he said, nobody should call. They shouldn't attempt to call him again because he's not interested. And, well, I mean, if what he said and the emotions that he expressed to me is anything to go by, if I have to believe him, well, those are his words. I mean, he didn't mention the specific NDC MP who was used to contact him. So one other modus operandi, allegedly, that they used was to use their own members against them to be able to get through to them. And this person who was speaking to me, yes, he's a first timer. This is first time in the house. So he is relatively new, but he said he was not interested in it because, I mean, of course, he said the kind of work that he does, he's a professional, and, you know, looking at it, for you to give him 10,000 cedis compared to just one consultancy that he would do, that he would take nothing less than $5,000 US, then what kind of an insult is that? So he wasn't going to entertain them at all. Well, I mean, it's not just him. Others also said, yes, they have been contacted. And I've also heard allegations about some people who were used to reach out to others. Well, all of these things, it's how difficult it is for the NDC as a party in Parliament to be able to manage this. I would say that it's going to be very, very difficult for especially the current leadership of the NDC or minority in handling their colleagues. There are a lot of people who are pissed, speaking. They are pissed. They smile to each other. And let me try this example. And this one I'm going to mention a name. The Ketu South MP, Abla Gomashi.
That's right.
She, after the voting, she was sharing tears. I mean, she was crying and said she knew that the people that she sits next to would have this kind of mentality and would do this kind of evil thing against their own. She was so shocked. There were MPs who came in. I know for sure the Ashama MP, when they realized the result, came out of the chamber and was crying. He cried. I saw him cry. I saw another MP, that's the Fajatu MP, who was visibly angry because ostensibly her constituents had taking her on and were insulting left, right. Of course, not saying directly that you voted against, but as long as you are a minority NDC MP, I mean, the presumption is that you voted for this candidate despite saying that you will reject them publicly. It's how complex the issue is.
Right.
But
yes.
I think in one way or the other, the leadership of the party, I am told, know those who voted for and those who voted against.
Right.
And there's a mechanism they claim they have in place. I have seen the General Secretary celebrating some of the people who voted no against these nominees on his WhatsApp status. If it's anything to go by, well, then it presupposes that they have some amount of evidence in their stock, which they possibly may be using, if you like,
in the future, so that maybe some element of process of elimination might then reveal who some people are calling the Judases of the.
It is going to be very, very difficult days. I mean, vetting is starting today with the presidential candidates, and yes, of course, I'm not saying that it might be the basis which some of them may be disqualified, but I think the signal from Adabraka also is that there should be some repercussions for this singular action, because it was a 3-line whip. However, they feel that they are receiving a lot of mistrust from Ghanaians for a singular action that this 136 NDC MPs have not been able to deliver for them and for Ghanaians. So yes, going forward, the days ahead might be interesting. Well, what is going to be the justification if you go back? You may have voted no, but if you do not have evidence to indicate that you have voted no, it's going to be difficult for you to convince maybe your conscience. But hey, I mean, it's something that should be left to the NDC and how they intend to manage it.
All right, Komla, thank you so much for your time this morning. And I know it's something that you're also keenly watching. We'll be connecting with you, of course, as we progress. And those were the thoughts of Komla Kluche, our colleague and also parliamentary correspondent. He has, shall I say, an intimate relationship with what happens in the House of Parliament. But let's say good morning and welcome our guest in studio. Lawyer Eduji Tamaklo is the leader of the NDC comms team and part of the legal team. Sir, good morning to you.
Sunrise. Good morning. I'm just a member.
You're just a member?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
For the communication setup, we have the National Communication Officer, Sami Jemfi leading. So we are all giving that necessary support. But that said, good morning and good morning to your... Yes, that said, good morning and good morning to your cherished listeners. Now, even viewers, right?
Yes. We are seen online.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Well, the happenings on Friday, they've been described as monumentally embarrassing. Some very harsh words have been used this week. And what do you make of the minority in Parliament's actions on Friday?
Okay, so a certain expectation was built. And that expectation had to do with the fact that the party had communicated a principal position. And that principal position is that they were going to, as it were, vote against the ministerial nominee. That principal position was supposed to be backed by the representatives in Parliament. Unfortunately, the desired outcome or the expected outcome, that is, having the 136 NDC MPs all voting against each one of the nominees, did not happen as expected. Legitimate disappointment by the rank and file, the good people of this country. But what is instructive, and which I have indicated much earlier, is the fact that the party, the NDC, has affirmed its resolve in opposing the bloated nature of the government. So whereas we agree with the sentiment broadly expressed by the people of this country against the conduct of a few among the minority, right? The party position, and again, a position that had been amply corroborated by H. John Dramani Mahama on his Facebook page, where he has expressed deep disappointment with the conduct on the floor. But like I pointed out, of the 136 NDC MPs, the record will show that a majority of 90-something, of the members stood by the principal position taken by the party.
Right.
And I am looking at a situation where what would have been the story if, for instance, the entire NDC minority voted in support? So, whereas I agree to the genuine, legitimate disappointment from Ghanaians,
right,
I also want us to situate a conversation where the overwhelming majority stood by the principal position as the bloated size of government. And again, this is a position that the party subsequently had issued a statement to affirm again. And so the call on Mr. Akufo-Addo to downsize, it's not a call that is going to die down by reason of the conduct of the few of the minority. No. I also want to use this platform to sincerely apologize to the people who feel let down. I think it's in order that we apologize when people have legitimate expectations about you and you are not able to meet that legitimate expectation. Man up and apologize when there need be. I do not see any justification whatsoever with what happened in Parliament.
Right.
So the position that I've taken is to apologize for what happened and look at the way forward.
Now, what about the conversation surrounding possible sabotage because of the shake-up that we saw in the leadership in Parliament? Some people have preferred the reasons such as the way or the manner in which that shake-up happened, the displeasure of some of the members and how it took place. But following that, the party presented a united front to say, well, everything is fine, we've smoothed things over. Was that just a facade?
You see, my lady, I want to speak from the known to the unknown.
Sure.
What I'm aware is that the party took a principal position. A few decided to go contrary to that position. Whether it is as a result of monetary, it's as a result of anything, there's no justification.
Okay.
Whether some people decided that, I want to sabotage. Remember that the sabotage and the replication is not personal to the leadership. Today, what people are saying is NDC minority, correct? So it's the collective brand that has been affected. So if you went out thinking that you were going to, as it were, sabotage this person,
right,
you have sabotaged the whole of the caucus. So there's no justification whatsoever. I do not want to give credence to those ones, right, because it's like you are not in tune with the mood of the people. And I do not want to glorify it at all. Whether sabotage or whatever, it is unjustified. And it has caused great reputational risk. And in those circumstances, what you do is to look your people in the face, apologize to them, and ensure that it doesn't happen again.
How is that going to happen? How do we trust what the minority caucus says again?
It's not an issue of trusting what the minority caucus will say. And I always use the biblical example. I've always maintained that Christ in his earthly ministry personally selected 12 people. I want to believe that he did that prayerfully. Thankfully, there was no woman among them. Thankfully.
Thankfully, why'd you say that?
So that nobody will blame the women.
Okay.
So only men, 12 of them. Christ prayed before choosing these 12. But even these 12, just 12, he could not get the full loyalty of these 12 people. He couldn't. Correct.
That's right.
Even the leader that he thought he could, Peter, in the moment of crisis, he denied him how many times?
Was it three times?
3 times.
Yes.
and many others took different positions. And Christ looked at them and he said, look, I gave you the prophecy. So imagine 136 people leading them. Even 12 was not possible. So I usually want to give allowances for people, human failing. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So there is a position. The leadership of the minority have come out to say, look, we gave you these assurances because we're confident that we could marshal this number. From our point as leaders, we got 136 MPs on the floor. Do you get it?
Yeah.
That first is our utmost responsibility to whip everybody in line. However, you see, for appointments processes, it requires secret ballot. I prefer the American system. You see, you don't know what is in the head of a man.
That's right.
So in the US, your voting records are recorded. Right?
And that's something you say we should replicate.
We should, going forward. You see, if you voted for your MP, you want to know the kind of decision he takes in Parliament.
That's right. Yes.
Whether even his decisions are in sync with your personal principle.
And in fact, in sync with what he or she is telling you.
Exactly.
Right.
No, but even your expectation first.
Right.
Because like I always say, the vote is a contract. So like the word vote is from Latin votus, which simply means contractual, a pact, agreement. So there are two sides to this conversation. So you want to know, the powers have been, vested in you by reason of this term. How are you using it? Is it for me or for yourself? We need to have this broader conversation.
But lawyer, sticking with this one, the workings of Parliament, we're told, it's a very unique animal. It works in its own way. I've heard the expression, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, being used this weekend. So that I've been told, by political analysts that it is naive to think that a vote like this would not be without its issues and that everybody would toe the line because there's friendships in Parliament, there's familial ties, and there are loyalties also.
So you see, we are offered, like I always say, life experiences provides you an educational avenue, right? Let me give you a scenario. So if you recall, about 98 MPP MPs came out rebuking the finance minister. You recall that conversation? Good. Now, just when they did that, the NDC brought a formal censure motion against the finance minister.
Correct.
One would expect that consistent with the call by the MPP MPs, they will join the minority to censure the finance minister. Correct. Then the MPP party issued a statement from their general secretary that MPP MPs don't be part of this conversation. So you know what happened? Eventually, they didn't even partake.
That's right.
I want to believe that maybe the MPP took a strategic position that we can't trust maybe our people. If we allow them to go and do the vote, we may get some people from our own side joining the censure motion. So we are boycotting it all together. You will not even get the opportunity to exercise a decision-making process. That may be a bit different from the scenario where we are looking at now. And that's why I have said, for me, the way forward is to cure disappointment among the people of this country first.
By apologizing, you say?
Yes.
Okay.
The apology is in order. And I think that the rank and file deserve it. Because you see, they have invested a certain kind of trust in you. When you wrong someone, you don't go, showing any macho. Be man enough to say, I got it wrong.
Right.
I've disappointed you. Your legitimate expectations, there is a letdown. I apologize sincerely for it. What's the way forward? From now to December 2024, we'll still need these MPs.
That's right.
There are major government programs and policies that will be coming. Some may not accord with the national interest. You still need an opposition to hold the government in check. So I still believe that notwithstanding what Look,
which is what we were hoping to see.
I agree.
Because MPs have a mandate to check the executive to ensure that you and I, all our collective monies are used prudently.
Sometimes the check may not necessarily be the approval.
Right.
The check may just be that one lone voice in the conversation. That one lone voice in the whole cacophony, telling everybody, hey, can we look at it this way? See, it is this same minority that had repeatedly warned against what is going to happen to the economy. They have been vindicated. It is this same minority that raised the issues bordering on the cathedral projects. They have been vindicated. Today, what has happened to the cathedral project? After sinking 139 million into the project, we have a very big hole with nothing.
That's right.
So this minority had held this government on the hot fire of accountability. But we expect more.
That's right.
Oliver Trace, we want more.
Absolutely.
And it's legitimate. Until the deal is done, you can't stop. So these are very legitimate conversations. And that is why, if you note, my posturing toward this whole matter is to look apologetic.
Right.
Because, you see, I don't want to provide any justification whatsoever for what happened.
So you say these reasons that have been preferred, we park them to the side, and the way forward is to apologize.
Yes.
And then move forward. Speaking about moving forward, we know that the party intends to carry out some investigations, if you will. Alfred breaks this down for us. Let's take a quick listen, and then we will return to the conversation.
The first issue the NDC leadership is going to investigate is the strong relationship and association some MPs have with ministerial nominees. The second issue under investigation are some senior NDC MPs were not too happy about the timing of the change in leadership. They are said to have engineered the sabotage. The third issue to be investigated is all first-time MPs on the minority side in Parliament. According to our sources, their inexperience and vulnerability may have gotten them influenced by some of the ministerial nominees. The fourth issue is all female NDC MPs who may be investigated, except Ketu South MP Abla Jifa Gomashi, for some suspicious allegiances and relationship with the party hierarchy is aware of. The fifth issue, which will be investigated in the next 30 days, is a young MP who has a past record of engineering a previous sabotage. A top party leader in the NDC is reported to have called this young MP for an initial conversation on the matter. The sixth issue is the video evidence of the NDC minority MPs while they were voting during the secret balloting in Parliament. Our source in the NDC said the NDC leadership has obtained the videos of the MPs while they were voting, and they have a mechanism already in place to identify those who went contrary to the party's directives. The seventh and final issue is the deep contacts of the approved Food and Agriculture Minister and MP for Betifi, Brian Champong.
All right, and that was that quick recap there from Alfred. Lawyer, the way forward, we're talking
I've listened to the conversation by Alfred. I think most of them are largely speculative.
Right.
I say this because, you see, my lady, one thing that is clear is that the ballot was secret. So if anybody comes to tell you that he has a means of knowing who voted for who and who didn't, if that were the case, the speaker election would have become problematic.
Right.
You see, the reason why I'm very hesitant with this conversation is that when the election of the speaker came, if you recall, the NDC provided a candidate, MPP provided. At that time, the NDC members in Parliament were just 137, correct? But after the votes, the NDC, Speaker Bagben, had 139 votes.
Right.
How did it happen? Do you know who voted? The two more from MPP side who voted for him. Do you have an idea?
I don't.
Do you know how sad possibly the MPP members were at that voting outcome? Because they felt their members have let them down. But what is not in doubt is that only two out of a majority of 138 did that to the caucus, right?
That's right.
Good. Now, fast forward to the conversation now. If you pick Brian Champon, who had the highest, he still had 98 voting no.
That's right.
So even if NDC had 136 on the floor, what it means is that a majority of 98 out of the minority group voted against the ministerial appointment. The point I'm making is that there's an overwhelming rejection, even from the minority, even though a few decided to break ranks with a party position. You understand? So this whole idea, let's go and investigate. Let's go and do this. What will be the end game? My lady.
You don't think a name and shame is the way forward?
You see, so when you name and shame,
right,
what next? Because as I speak to you, this week alone, there will be the need to vote on 3 tax handles.
That's right.
There's also the conversation about the CI.
Correct.
Right? All these matters are coming up this week. Who are going to be the troops to be used? The people you have named and shamed?
So that you say tactically, it's not the way forward.
We need to handle it with tact, like you pointed out.
Right.
Because there's still work to be done.
What is the assurance that the NDC will have a united front? You talk about the CI and the bills, these 3 bills that are to be passed, especially since our financial woes continue to escalate.
And you see, I'm happy you raised this critical issue of financial woes. See, there are 3 tax handles government had put forward, desiring to raise about 4 billion Ghana cedis annually from these 3 taxes. I have always maintained, my lady, that the problem with this government is not lack of taxes. It is not. Because this government is the most resourced since 1992. Look, let me give you a breakdown of the various taxes obtained by this administration in the space of this 6 years.
Right.
In 2017, this government raked in total tax of 33 billion Ghana cedis. In 2017, 33 billion. In 2018, they did 39 billion. In 2019, they did 45.6 billion Ghana cedis. In 2020, COVID year, when we're all complaining, they did 47 billion.
47 billion, you say?
More than the previous year's tax revenue. In 2021, basically when we're recovering from COVID, we did 57.06 billion Ghana cedis. 2022, just last year, we did 75 billion Ghana cedis. If you put together tax revenue alone accruing to the Akufo-Addo administration in 6 years is 298 billion. 298 billion in the space of 6 years. The highest since 1992. So the problem we are having today is not lack of tax. It's about prudence. It's about curbing the reckless expenditures. Look, if we are able to manage government expenses a little bit, we didn't need an IMF program. Do you know why I say that?
And we could have started, Lawyer Eduji, with not approving the ministers to start making a dent.
No, you see, let's not make excuses for Akufo-Addo.
Okay.
Akufo-Addo has a responsibility to you and I. Let's not make excuses that, because it has been approved, you can go ahead. No. He is the leader. He has ultimate responsibility to use our financial resources more prudently.
So, like, from what I gather, you saying that actually the root cause, what we should not be averting our minds from, is the fact that actually it's the president that's nominated these individuals.
No,
without which we wouldn't even have this issue.
If you don't nominate, we'll not even get the conversation of starting something. As we speak today, it's been almost 2 months that the Agric Minister and Alan resigned.
Trade minister, yes.
Has the trade minister come to a halt?
No, not as far as I'm aware.
Exactly. At least the president, in his wisdom, thinks that the fisheries minister can play the role of agric minister. Is that not the case? How I come say she had given her additional responsibility to manage the agric ministry. Why not merge them? Why not merge them? The president had the power to merge. Look, some of the appointments were deputy ministers, ministry that had already 2 deputies. You have added a 3rd one.
You say it's frivolous.
Completely unjustified. Look, and I have always made this point. Look at Obiamwa. You move him from deputy local government minister, and then you say, no, I've made you minister of state in charge of local government. Already, Dan Boche is the local government minister. You have directors at the local government ministry. You also have somebody at the office of the president, my own friend, Miracle Abuaji, in charge of local government and decentralization. What are we talking about? So let us not shift the responsibility. Mr. Akufo-Addo, who is the president of Ghana, has a certain responsibility, and we need to call him out.
Well, lawyer, let me situate it this way. Instead of saying let's not shift the blame, 2 things can be right at the same time.
No, we can share the blame.
Thank you.
No, we can share the blame. You understand? We can share the blame. But you see, there's a popular saying in Akan: when you fall, you don't blame where you fell. Possibly go back and check. Then cry the mao, then the floor was slippery. You lost your balance, you fell. Was muddy, you lost your balance, you fell. So possibly by identifying that this is it, tomorrow you know if the floor is not wet, there wouldn't be an issue. What I just want us to look is that, you see, typically the accounts will say, there's a root cause. We must identify that root cause. And that root cause is that the president feels that he's at liberty to do anything. The president sees himself as Nana in the true sense of the word Nana, like a village chief, where he can do anything that he wants. No, this is a democratic society. Look, you see, I gave you the tax handles.
That's right.
And I wanted us to situate this conversation. Look at this. Our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, from the time he became president, one of the things that he had done consistently is to approach the Bank of Ghana for something. So consistently from 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and even now, Nana Addo had caused the Bank of Ghana to even breach the Bank of Ghana Act consistently.
This is by extending credit far beyond what the law allows.
Advances.
Yes.
Look, in 2020, COVID year, Bank of Ghana gave overdraft amounting to 10 billion to government of Ghana. Right? In 2021, 43 billion. In 2022, 50 billion Ghana cedis. Just from January to now, 4 billion.
And counting.
Meanwhile, the Bank of Ghana Act 612, as amended by Act 918, Section 30, is clear that the allowable permit of overdraft total loans from the Bank of Ghana to central government should not exceed 5% of the previous year total tax. So assuming you are even doing a total tax of 33 billion, 5% of that should not be up to 50 billion. So consistently, the Bank of Ghana had been breaching. So aside your tax revenue, this government had also gotten all these monies from the Bank of Ghana, plus the loans. So if you put everything together, the total financial envelope that has come to Mr. Akufo-Addo in the space of 6 years is over 800 billion Ghana cedis. 800 billion Ghana cedi in 6 years.
That's no mean figure.
Look,
that's no small figure.
That's over $100 billion. It's no joke.
Lawyer, you keep referring to some of the breaches that the Akufo-Addo-led administration has been accused of, or you allege. Now you speak about the Bank of Ghana, which sits in the Constitution, if I'm right.
Yes.
You speak of Parliament, which also sits in the Constitution.
Fantastic.
Now we also speak of the President, whose power is also drawn from the Constitution, if I'm right, Article 71. Now we've had instances in this NDC issue and in previous instances where MPs have been alleged to have taken bribes. Now, if I heard right from the submission by Alfred Okansi, as we played now, Rickett Hagan, who is a member of Parliament, alleges that there was some bribery. Is this something that can be situated or equated to lobbying, or it must be treated as a criminal matter and dealt with? Number one. Number two, the issue with the Bank of Ghana and the President, as you have submitted, is this something that must be left to radio discussion, or the law must take its course so that some of these things do not keep recurring? Because I want to see how the law
let me
deal with some of these matters.
I agree. Let me read something to you. The Bank of Ghana Act, as amended, subsection 2. It says, the total loans, advances, purchases of treasury bills and securities made under subsection 1 shall not at any time exceed 5% of the total revenue of the previous year fiscal year. The law is clear. And this amendment was done in 2016. So when Akufo-Addo became president, this law was there. Why do you think consistently he had become an accomplice in the BOG breaching the law? What is it that makes Akufo-Addo and his appointees confident enough to violate the laws of this country? The accounts have a saying. They say, "Unifreni kaso obeto oboa. Ebiana ne na eyeden. Esi bibiso." Ana.
To it?
I don't know. I mean, you see, if you are doing something wrong,
right,
and you know what you are doing is wrong, what will embolden you to continue to do it? There are two things. It is either you feel you are not accountable to anybody, or you believe that nobody can hold you to account. These two.
Repeat that for us, lawyer.
You see, it's either you are thinking that you are not accountable to anybody, you are Lord of Lords, or you believe that nobody can hold you account. That's a conversation now. Because you see, you didn't do it once. 2020, 2021, 2022. As we speak, you are still taking advances from the Bank of Ghana.
And that's the question I'm asking. I mean, you are a lawyer and you're making this pronouncement. I would want to be educated like anybody who is listening to us.
That's right.
What is the way forward in terms of the law? Is it Parliament that should bring the Bank of Ghana and the executive?
See, let me you see, the provision I just read. Let me tell you something again. That same provision, the subsection, it says, where the total loans, advances, purchases of treasury bills made under subsection 1 is 5% of the previous year total revenue. The governor shall notify the minister and Parliament of the attainment of the limit under subsection 2. And the minister, upon notification, shall report to Parliament on the remedial measures to be taken.
And are we suggesting that these were not done? And if they were not, and then what did Parliament say?
None whatsoever.
What did Parliament say?
So that is where exactly. I agree that Parliament has a role to play in this conversation. So that is where I'm coming. That, look, you have a country where a finance minister, 98 of the people who even approve him, 98 of the people who even approve him, comes to the point where they say, no, the economic mess that we are having in this country, they are coming from you. check Article 82 of the 1992 Constitution. You have the Constitution here?
We do. We have copies.
You can easily check for me. Article 82.
I don't know if we have a copy to hand, but we can check. We can check online, can't we?
Yes, you can easily just check Article 82 of the 1992 Constitution. There's something interesting in there. And I want this public conversation so that we can all appreciate the challenges that we have. It's on motion for censure.
That's right. Shall we get that education? All right. So this is Article 82, vote of censure. 1. Parliament may, by, I don't know if the wording is correct, Parliament may, by solution supported by the votes of not less than 2/3.
By a resolution.
By a resolution. They've spelt it here wrongly. I'm not sure what website this is. By a resolution supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of all members of Parliament pass a vote of censure on a Minister of State. 822 says a motion for the resolution referred to in Clause 1 of this article shall not be moved in Parliament unless A. 7 days notice has been given of the motion, and B. the notice for the motion has been signed by not less than 1/3 of all members of Parliament. 3. The motion shall be debated in Parliament within 14 days after the receipt by the Speaker of the notice for the motion. 4. A Minister of State in respect of whom a vote of censure is debated under Clause 3 of this article is entitled during the debate to be heard in his defence. 5. Where a vote of censure is passed against a minister under this article, the President may, unless the minister resigns his office, revoke his appointment as a minister.
So you see.
Right.
So even the Constitution says that Parliament can do all this, even pass the vote of censure. But it's at the pleasure of the President.
Because the wording is clear. It says the President may. Right.
The President may do what? May. So you can get all these votes of censure passed. And the President said, look,
you should continue.
Time check. It is some.
That brings us to the second point, still in Parliament. So with regards to the allegation of bribery.
So you see, let me tell you something. If you recall, around 2007, the Vodafone deal. You remember?
Yeah.
So PC Apiofori broke rank and said he didn't.
Yes.
But his colleagues took $5,000 each. Right? From that time, what happened?
Nothing. Nothing that I remember.
If you recall, the vetting of Boache Jaku or something.
Yeah.
There was also another allegation of bribery.
Yeah.
A ministerial committee was even set up. What happened?
I don't remember anybody being held accountable for anything.
Today, I have listened to the Honorable Ricky Traken.
Right.
I felt that he would be more confident. Rather than throw the allegation, he would say, whilst in Parliament, my lady approached me with an envelope containing 5,000, 10,000. He says, I should vote. I didn't. This is it. She brought the money. Then there's now a conversation, because you see, in this enterprise of bribery, there's a bribe giver and then a bribe taker. Even if you attempt bribing somebody, it's an offense. Attempt is an offense.
Right.
So the Honorable Ricky Reagan could have done all of us a certain good by being clear, saying that, you know what, this my colleague took a bribe of this amount.
I mean, what he did say was that leadership had made it known to him that some members had been compromised.
Please. He was categorical.
Right.
He used the word bribe.
Bribe, that's right.
Yes. I mean, it cannot just be speculative. It cannot be based on hearsay.
It must be evidence-based.
It must be evidence-based, because that's a very serious allegation. In this country today, the Criminal Offences Act has been amended to make bribery and corruption a felony. If you are convicted, you do no less than 12 years imprisonment.
Right.
So as a member of Parliament who is willing to go public with a serious allegation of bribery against your fellow MPs, you must have the evidence.
Well, you wanted some education on that point. Does that make things
Well,
clear?
because especially when the same MPs on the other side, the MPP also alleged that a certain businessman walked in with money to bribe. We are having too many of these conversations.
So
and
if you recall, the Ken Ofori-Atta conversation,
Exactly.
Yes.
they said, there was a businessman.
Yes.
But beyond that, Sebi, in this country, every businessman has a name.
Exactly. So
I don't remember the last time I saw a ghost conducting business in this country. So when you make a specific allegation that businessman so and so, I mean, you should be confident enough to say, Eduji, on this day came with Ghana must go. I saw him moving from office to office, distributing this money. This is the evidence. Does it not bring clarity to the conversation?
It certainly does.
And you see, let me tell you, there's also another angle to this whole conversation, which is how Parliament is at work. In the US, Joe Biden wanted to pass the infrastructure bill to inject close to $200 billion, in fact, almost 1.something trillion, if I'm not mistaken, into the US economy.
Right.
The Republican Party stood up against it because his view was that, look, American bridges are not looking good. American roads are not looking good. A lot of infrastructure problem in America. So with that kind of stimulus package, it's going to create a certain economic activity that would endanger economic growth. The Republican Party said, no, Mr. President, what you're going to do is going to fuel inflation. We'll do everything. We oppose. Okay. So he took the matter to the U.S. Congress. 13 Republican congressmen supported the vote for the infrastructure bill. Correct. The 13 that did that possibly didn't do that because somebody gave them money. Right?
Right.
Because you see, someone believes that, oh,
the road will pass there.
My states, maybe Delaware, Ohio, Connecticut or Minnesota or whatever, our roads are no good. As a congressman from that point, people complain to me. I've seen that from the Infrastructure Now Act, a lot of the roads will come, a lot of the bridges to be repaired are situated in my state. So even though the party says I should not support this position, because I know that these things are coming to me, I'll support it.
Right.
Let me give you another example. A loan facility had come to Parliament. The loan is to construct hospitals, not hospitals.
Right.
Then in that loan agreement, I've seen, maybe I'm the MP for, say, Domekwa-Benya. NDC had brought the loan. But I'm an MP for Domekwa-Benya. So when the loan came, I saw that they are going to build a hospital in Abokobi, which falls within my constituency. Do you think, in all fairness and conscience, if my party tells me to oppose it, I'll do it?
A possibility exists that you think about your constituents, you think about that.
Because you then be asking yourself that, the bulk of my votes comes from Abokobi. They are going to build a hospital in Abokobi. And the record will show that when the loan facility came, I was the one who opposed it. That will be your end. Doing that will amount to a political suicide. So I am saying that we should also be careful in looking at the conversation at a broader level beyond what has happened just on Friday. When you situate the conversation well, a few things becomes clearer. So it may not necessarily be a question of bribe. Somebody may do it even on a purely altruistic basis. Recently, the U.S. Senate had to consider Joe Biden's appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. The first black woman to be appointed by a U.S. president to the U.S. Supreme Court. What happened? The Republican Party took issues with what's her name? Is it Jackson? They took issues. The matter went to Senate. Eventually, when the approval happened, 3 Republican senators
voted in favor.
Assuming you're a black lady, which you are.
Which I am.
Which you are.
No assumptions here.
Yes. And you represent, say, South Carolina.
Right.
A Republican senator. There has always been this conversation in the U.S. how blacks have not been treated fairly.
Correct.
So a president comes and says, for the first time, out of the black community, I'm picking one of your own to the U.S. Supreme Court to ensure diversity.
Right.
Would you have the courage, even if your party says you should not do, would you have the courage to do that?
Intrinsically, I would think, no, I've got to put my support behind my race.
So
exactly.
Council, so are these submissions to suggest that some of the reasons that you are putting on the table submitting this morning could also be the reasons why some of your MPs voted for the nominees?
I am saying that we can't limit the conversation to bribery.
So these submissions could also some of the reasons.
Are they not tenable?
Yeah, they are. That's the point. So why would the party be so hard on those who voted against
no, because you see the party. If, for instance,
you see the party. Greek minister is going to do something for me in my constituency, for which reason I'm voting for him. Like you're saying, will it be not political suicide for me to go ahead and listen to the party?
No, but so that is why I'm saying that there's a party position. There's a consequence for breaching a party position,
and they're ready to go for that.
And so if you take that position, know that it comes with consequences.
But how does that happen when it's a secret ballot? How do we fish them out for them to face the consequences?
That's also another conversation.
Yes, and one that if we open the can of worms, so I won't have time to move on.
But is not the pipe dream for the party to suggest that they're going to have a certain investigation into the matter?
I don't know the mechanisms available to the party. I'm not privy.
Right.
I'm not privy.
All right. Time check. Time check. It is some 27 minutes past the hour of 9. You're still live here on 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. We're joined in studio by lawyer Eduji Tamaklo. He's a member of the NDC's legal team, also comms team, and we've been chit-chatting with him for the last over 40 minutes or so concerning what happened in the House of Parliament last Friday with the approval of some 6 nominees into ministerial positions. Lawyer, please wrap up for me on this conversation. We've talked about possible reasons. You've offered an apology, and you say the way forward is to what? Bring the party together so that you can forge ahead. There are tasks ahead.
In fact, Akufo-Addo has another budget statement to put, right? Right? By next year, he has to present another budget statement. It will require an approval process. We may not know what will be in that budget. What skill set, what tools are available for you to do when it becomes necessary to stand up to him? It's the same human resource that you have. So I'm just saying that we should be tactical how we proceed going forward.
Right.
I think there is a reason why the wives say you don't throw the baby with the bath water or something. There must be a sound reason for that. What it means is that, yeah, the bath water is bad, it's terrible. The child has possibly swallowed itself or something or herself, and you have to bath the child. But this child will definitely do it again. So each time you may have the unfortunate task of throwing the baby every time.
Well, before you go, I have a little question for you as a politician. People, those of us who sit away from politics sometimes think that you have all the raves and runs on issues, MPP, NDC, but when after you leave radio stations, you leave parliament, you leave the TV stations, you go as classmates, you go as friends and have motu and fufu. So some of the things that you tell that we shouldn't take them as seriously as you would wish because of what has happened with this NDC caucus and then what happened with the MPP. What's the point on that matter?
And like, just in about a minute for me so we can wrap up.
No, so like an answer to that, yes, it's true. Those kind of relationships exist. I remember, and I'll tell you this. I remember in my opposition to this ministerial appointment, then an MPP friend, I mean, he's a communicator like myself, but he's an MP. So I said, look, we are going to oppose this thing. You will see.
And you were hitting the table like that.
So he sent me a WhatsApp message. He said, Educhi, stop what you are doing. So you are telling me that if tomorrow Muhammad should even appoint you or something, and you come, me, I can look you in the face and
But you are my friend.
and say I will not. This is why he told me. And I say, oh, look, don't come and yob me. We'll do what we have to do. Look, you'll be shocked. And something I was privy, like,
yeah,
it was a particular ministerial appointment, much earlier, not this one. The people, it took a tribal turn. Seriously.
A tribal turn, you say?
Yes. People from the man's village came and said, but you, your Dakumba brother. I'm just using it for. God has been merciful. He's gotten an appointment. And you want the whole world to know that you don't like Dagombes.
Okay.
You want something good is coming to us, and you are opposed to it.
So
the dynamic is no. It's complex.
That's the point I wanted to make. It's
extremely complex.
Yes. Anyway.
All right. Well,
thank you very much.
Yeah. How is the humble pie tasting? Is it delicious?
Somebody is going to chew his pepper, and this morning you are going around.
There's this song.
We'll play it for you.
Yes.
DJ Phil, are you familiar with this one? Maybe we'll see this conversation out with that one.
No, being so obiting or ham.
It's going to be a busy week for you, lawyer. It's going to be a busy week for you. I know the humble pie isn't tasting too good at this moment, but thank you.
So we have been apologizing. So extend my apology to your listeners.
I leave that to the good people of Ghana to accept or not.
For the blunder and then the huge disappointment.
All right, Lawyer, thank you again so much for your time and for joining us. This is still 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.